Welcome back. All right, South Carolina, 4-8 season, not a great year for Shane Beamer. There's obviously some changes that were made. Some things need to be fixed, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. I think making the right hire is going to be huge for next year, and whatever group can get this talented group of players to play at a high level is going to be huge. Under 23 points per game is not going to get the job done. It's not a great performance from this group. The passing game was not consistent enough, obviously, but I think people kind of forget the 9-4 season because of how poorly this year went. They forget that 2024 was a 9-4 year. It was actually a fairly solid season, and that is something that should at least have a little bit of weight in where Shane Beamer can take this team. It's clear that he knows how to get his team at a point where they can win at a high level. So that's something to pay attention to, something to obviously see, but it's clear that things need to be fixed. And they started the year 3-2. Obviously, you weren't feeling great, but it wasn't a disaster. And then obviously you see the finish, a 1-6 finish, not exactly the strongest of finishes by any team, but still a very, very poor end of the season. And when you look at the game specifically, the first half was, I think, fairly solid for South Carolina. It's just that the second halves of games they just derailed. It was just not a good performance. But as you can see, it's at least the defense that's keeping them in games. It's just the offense just imploded. 53 points total in the third quarter for this year, 35 in the fourth quarter. That's not going to win you a ton of football games. That's not going to get you in a position to be successful. That's very concerning for a team that, if you want to compete in the SEC, you're going to have to do much better than that. First half was all right, but the second half, as you can see, not very good. Now, obviously, the offensive issues, I think everybody kind of knows it. There's not really a secret about what went wrong. And I think that LaNorris Sellers is way too talented to have this much of a struggle. So you got to find the right person to be able to elevate his game to get him to play at a high level. Because when LaNorris Sellers is playing confidently, this team is incredibly dangerous. And the size, the ability, everything about him makes him an interesting NFL prospect. It's just you have to extract that from him, right? He has to be able to show that for teams to worry about him. It affects the passing attack, a passing attack that wasn't great, but it also impacts what the rushing attack can do. Because if teams don't have to respect the pass, they're going to load up the box. And LaNorris Sellers is big and strong and very talented, but he's not going to be able to do very much. Now, Rasul Faison did get to play this year. We had the issue with his eligibility. He got approved to play. Not a great year for him either. Again, that's where you saw it affected him. And Sellers wasn't exactly shining like he should have, and that affected the rushing attack. Leading rusher only has 470 yards. There's only 3 guys with over 200 yards rushing. That's not going to win you a ton of football games. Again, that's not a great formula for success. Now, the passing attack did have some highlights. Nick Harbor, 618 yards, 6 touchdowns, averaged nearly 21 yards per catch. But I think besides the Virginia Tech game, I don't know if there were a ton of moments where he showed exactly what he's capable of doing. I think that this is a guy who has track speed, but can he develop into that complete wide receiver? Does he have a deep route tree? Can he be quick? Can he create separation? Outside of his main line speed, the straight north and south, does he have the ability to create separation at his size? I think that he has a lot of talent in him. There's a lot of ability, but there are some technical things that maybe you have questions about. And again, since that Virginia Tech game, we didn't really hear a ton about Nick Harbor this year. So that's something that could be a concern. The other things that you saw from this group, I think that you saw Vendrevius Jacobs, Jaden Sellers, you saw Donovan Murph, freshman, step up in a little bit in a smaller capacity. But again, the passing attack just didn't give these guys a ton of opportunities. Somebody needs to play a bigger role next year. So whoever that's going to be, don't necessarily know. Murph and Bryan Jr., a lot of people are excited about those two coming into the year, but it's kind of hard when your passing attack isn't giving you what you need. And a lot of that is on the quarterback position, but there are also some things that could be fixed elsewhere as well. Offensive line, rushing attack, there are a number of things that can help. But again, the quarterback position with the passing attack has to be better, plain and simple. That's really the biggest key for this group. Now, when you flip to the defensive side of the ball, the numbers aren't going to be what people deem acceptable, but it's a big reason why they were at least in some of these games. And we're going to dive into the schedule here in a little bit, but the defensive line did its part. Bryan Thomas Jr. and Dylan Stewart, we talked about both of those guys coming into the year. They did their part. Now, those are two guys that we didn't talk about a ton, probably because we weren't talking about South Carolina very much. Thomas, 12 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. Dylan Stewart, 12 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles as well. That helps the group behind him, the two groups behind them. The linebacker position, not super disruptive, but also didn't have to do a ton of work because of some of the guys we talked about just now. And I think the secondary did benefit from that and was able to make some plays. Jalen Kilgore, not as good of a season in the secondary, but still a pretty solid season for him. Vicari Swain, I think people remember his returning ability, although that felt like it was more of a early season thing, early season phenomena, if you will. He is someone that has big time ability. And I'm very curious to see how this group improves next year. How do they get better? How do they show that they are a much better team in 2026 than they were in 2025? Because if the offense can take a step and the defense either remains what they were or improves, because they can get better, this is going to be a fun team to watch. And when you look at the schedule, it's kind of easy to see that this is going to be a tougher year. And even against some of the quality competition. The Virginia Tech game was all right. I think that you look at now, looking back, it was just that South Carolina beat a bad Virginia Tech team and not by a ton. They did what they needed to do. South Carolina State, 38-10, not much to take away from that one. The 31-7 loss to Vanderbilt, we knew the Commodores were going to be good, but that kind of was a statement of there is a different feeling towards both of those programs. Following that up with a 9-point loss to Missouri, didn't build a ton of confidence, but at least they remind everyone they're not, at the time, a bottom dweller by beating Kentucky 35-13. There were close games, and I think that's one thing if you're going to take something from this season is that there were one-score games that, or at least one score or 10 points or less games that could mean this team is going to be better next year. They lost to LSU by 10. They lost to Alabama by 7. They lose to Texas A&M in one of the more epic meltdowns that we've seen in the second half by 1. So there are games that this team was in, and this could have been a bowl team if they found ways to win some of those games. It's just that the deficiencies continue to hurt them. So that's not going to get the job done, not going to win you a bunch of games if you can't win some of those closer games. Because when you look at the games they did win, they won them comfortably. The one-score games, they lost all of them. So that's not exactly going to help you a ton. Next year, big year for Shane Beamer. He has to make the right hires, develop the players that he has on his roster, and obviously find players in the portal to help elevate this group. I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know what he's going to do, but I do know that he just won 9 games 2 years ago. So there is good that can come from this. There is good on the roster. There's talent to be able to make this a better group. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does to develop this team, what he does to make them better, and how 2026 could potentially be better than 2025.